What's going on, y'all? It's me again. This is supposed to be a walk and talk, but it's looking like it's gonna rain outside, and I'm walking pretty slow with a limp, so I don't want to get caught in the shower. You feel me? So we're gonna have this conversation here in my humble abode, my home gym. All right. So I've been talking about personal finance and investing online for a couple years now, but when I first got into the space, I would be listening to other people speak. So I'd be on YouTube, I'd be listening to podcasts, and it sort of felt like they were speaking a different language. I didn't understand the lingo and terminology they were using. And I'm sure some of you guys feel like that when you're listening to my videos or listening to me speak. So what I want to do is I want to help break down a few terms that I feel like are important for you to understand, which is going to help open up your mind to the financial space and investing, but it's also going to help you take control of your own wealth building journey. Try to keep it as simple as possible because I don't want to overload you with too much information. But at the same time, if you gotta take notes, take notes. First term that I want to talk to y'all about is interest. Super important. So interest is the cost of borrowing money, or it's the reward you get for saving or investing your money. We have two types of interest. We got simple interest and then compound interest. Simple interest is only calculated on your original amount, or what's called your principal. Say you invest $1,000 at 5% simple interest for 3 years. All right, that's $50 a year because 5% of 1,000 is 50. So you just multiply 50 by 3, you get $150. That should be straightforward. Compound interest is a whole different beast. Albert Einstein once called compound interest the eighth wonder of the world. Compound interest turns time into like a superpower. Compound interest works on not just your principal or the original amount of money you put in, it also earns interest on the interest that you earned. This is the process of how money makes money. Let's take the numbers that we used for simple interest and apply them to compound interest. So imagine you invest $1,000 at 5% compounded annually over 3 years. All right, your numbers may look a little bit different, right? So the first year, remember, 5% of 1,000 is $50. So at the end of year one, you're going to have $1,050, right? Year two, you're not just adding interest to the $1,000, you're adding interest to the interest you've already earned. So instead of adding 5% interest to $1,000, you're adding 5% interest to $1,050, which brings your year two total to $1,102.50. For your year three end total, you're taking 5% of year two's total, which was $1,102.50, and adding, so you're adding 5% to that, which leaves you with $1,157.63 by the end of year three. That's just over $7 more than if you had had simple interest. As time goes on, that gap just gets wider and wider. So what I want you to take away from this is that compound interest is your best friend when you're saving money or when you're investing money. Time plus compound interest equals exponential growth, right? The earlier you start investing and saving, the less you have to invest over time because compound interest is going to do the heavy work for you, right? That gap between how much you make and how much you put in is just going to keep getting wider. But keep in mind, compound interest works both ways, right? So if you have debt, that compound interest is going to keep growing. That debt is going to keep growing. Next term we're going to talk about is inflation. I'm sure you've heard this term be thrown around a whole lot, especially in the last 4 or 5 years. Most people think of inflation as just prices rising or the cost of living rising. That's true, but what inflation really is the devaluation of your currency or your dollar, right? So your dollar is losing purchasing power, which means whatever I could buy with $100 today, I won't be able to buy as much with $100 5 years from now or a year from now. Why? Because my $100 has lost purchasing power. People need to realize is that inflation isn't just a natural force that exists, right? It's engineered. It's being done on purpose. If you're listening to the news or reading the news online, you'll always see something about how the economy isn't doing that great, it's slowing down and things need to pick up. The government wants to stimulate the economy. They do something called lowering interest rates. I'm sure you've heard that before. right? And what this does, what lowering interest rate does, is that it makes it easier for businesses, corporations, and countries to borrow money, right? So they're just taking on more debt. These governments, corporations, and individuals don't realize is that, or maybe they do realize it, but they're just injecting more money into circulation, right? And everyone who's saving in that currency in dollars, their dollars are getting devalued, right? So as they're injecting more money into circulation, you got more dollars floating around chasing the same amount of goods. It's not like productivity has increased, just the amount of money in the system has increased, right? That's why prices go up, right? There's more dollars floating around. So these businesses and these merchants feel like, oh, since there's more dollars floating around, I could up the price on whatever product I'm selling so I can gain more from it. It's not that the product became more valuable or the work that these people have done has become more valuable. It's just that there's more money in the system. That's what I mean when I say your dollars are being devalued every day, right? Because every time they drop interest rates and take on more debt, they're just creating money out of thin air. Example, right? When COVID happened in Canada, we had something called CERB, right? And every citizen in Canada got $2,000 a month for God knows how long, right? Most people looked at that as a gift, but that wasn't free money, right? That was money that they printed out of thin air. That money didn't exist before. Notice after CERB, after the stimulus payments, everything around us got way more expensive. Rent went up, food went up, the price to rent a car went up, gasoline got more expensive, going out to restaurants anything you could think of, everything got more expensive. Why? Because with all that money they created and printed out of thin air, it came into circulation. So when there's more dollars in circulation, it only makes sense to raise the price. Call inflation the silent thief because you don't even know you're being robbed. You have no idea you're being robbed, right? You could still check your bank account and see that there's $100 in there, but that $100 doesn't buy what $100 bought you 5 years ago, right? It's not buying you what $100 bought you last year. It's buying you less and less every year, but it's still $100, right? So it doesn't look like you're being stolen from or robbed from, but you could feel it though. While saving dollars is important, if your dollars aren't growing at the same rate of inflation, you're actually losing money and losing purchasing power. Although your money's still in your bank account, what you can buy with it is less, right? This is why investing is super important. I'm not gonna get into too much investing today, that's for another video, but investing is the key to saving your purchasing power. But we'll talk about that another time. For these next terms, I want you to pay real close attention because this is where a lot of people get things wrong. I'm gonna talk about assets, right? Technically, an asset is anything that you own that has value. Definition, it means a useful or valuable thing, person, or quality. One thing to keep in mind is that not all assets are investments. I'm gonna say it again. Not all assets are investments. For an asset to be considered an investment, it needs to be able to do two things, one of two things. It needs to be able to appreciate in value and or provide cash flow without your direct involvement. The flip side, a liability is anything that takes money out of your pockets and depreciates with time, right? So it doesn't grow in value over time, it loses value over time. Third term we're going to talk about is liquidity. And all liquidity means is how fast you can turn an asset or anything into cash without it losing value. Most liquid assets that we have are physical cash and Bitcoin, which is digital cash, right? We have stocks. Stocks are fairly liquid. All I need to do is open up my phone, click on my brokerage app, choose what stock I want to sell, click sell, I exchange the stock for cash, and then I withdraw the cash from the brokerage, send it to my bank. Fairly easy, fairly flexible, right? We have things like real estate, right? People hold tons of money in real estate, but the problem with real estate is you can't sell a piece of it if you need quick cash, right? You can't sell a room for quick cash. You can't sell a part of an apartment for quick cash. If you want to sell a house or sell an apartment, that could take weeks to a few months. So real estate is not a liquid asset, not a liquid asset. Takeaway for this is that I want you to understand liquidity means flexibility. The faster you can sell and exchange your asset for cash is the faster you can respond to emergencies or opportunities that may arise. Let's do a quick review. Interest shows how much your money grows or shrinks over time. Inflation is the silent tax or silent thief that erodes your purchasing power. So the value of your dollar is decreasing over time. Keep things simple. An asset is anything that puts money in your pocket and has value. A liability is anything that takes money out of your pocket. Liquidity is how fast you can turn any asset into cash so you could take advantage of an opportunity or respond to an emergency. If you learned something new, or if I cleared up anything for you, or something made sense, hit like, share it with somebody else, and be on the lookout for the next one.